ChatGPT Atlas is here. We have spent time with OpenAI's new browser, which has critics' ravings and security experts kind of freaking out.
Gavin, you are so 2000 and late. Sorry, buddy. I'm having Atlas right now rewrite our entire intro.
Oh.
It's doing it. It's optimized for YouTube clips. It came up with Big Daddy Altman clicks deploy and Google's stock drops faster than Gemini's IQ test scores.
Kevin, I don't actually see this in our show notes.
Well, ChatGPT wrote it on the sidebar. I told it to put it in the document, but it said it did, but it didn't because you have to turn on agent mode. It doesn't do that automatically, so I'm just going to turn that on.
In the meantime, Google has updated its AI Studio, which means that it's making it much easier for normal people to vibe code real apps. Your parents, normal people could do this.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, Atlas actually wrote a very sick burn about that, Gavin, but right now it's struggling. It's in the document, but there's a bullet point that's in the way of it from dropping in the full text, and it made a typo, which it seems to be stuck on now. But as soon as it's trying to use keyboard shortcuts to get rid of the bullet point.
Okay, Kevin, let's let it work.
Yeah.
Sora 2 is also getting a really cool update to Cameos that's going to let you make AI videos with your pets and other characters, which is super fun. What's going on? What's happening? You all right over there?
It says it can't find what it's working. It scrolled too far down in the document, Gavin, and so now it's trying to figure out if it has to scroll back up to see the text, and then when it does, I'm sure it's going to drop in all of that good stuff. It's brand new.
Meanwhile, the DeepSeek team just made a massive breakthrough in AI research. Reddit is suing a number of companies, including Perplexity, for scraping its data. And we've got an amazing Robot Watch update with a new Unitree humanoid robot.
It's back on the bullet point. It's still stuck on the bullet point.
Well, it says it's gonna try a new approach.
Kevin, this is not the AI future we were promised, but this is AI for humans, everybody. Welcome, everybody, to AI for Humans. Another week in AI, another bunch of crazy big stories. Kevin, this week, the biggest story to date, maybe not to date, probably Sora 2 is a bigger story, but this is still a big story. ChatGPT Atlas. It is the world, Kevin, in one place, the World Wide Web. This is their agentic browser. This made a lot of news. In fact, it made so much news that it sent Google shares down 10% when it was announced, which is one of those things where, like, you know, somebody's coming from your business when your shares go down. You and I have both spent time with it. Let's start with what it is. Tell us a little bit about the basics of this if you can.
So it is Chromium based. So if you like Google Chrome, that's the foundation of this browsing experience, which is not a surprise, by the way. Like writing a browser from scratch, very difficult. Use a base that works and people know. So it's Chromium based. You basically launch Atlas and you are at a very familiar chat.com interface, your ChatGPT interface. But as you start typing, that's when you notice things are a little different. It is immediately trying to understand, are you asking ChatGPT a question? Are you hunting for a website? And when you smack enter, you're given sort of like a smattering of all of those options. Sometimes it will start to answer a question about the thing that you typed. Other times it will give you web browsing results related to the thing that you typed. There's also tabs for images and videos, but the whole point is that there is an Ask ChatGPT button in the top right-hand corner, Gavin. When you smack that, you get another sidebar. Not the sidebar that's on the left, which has all of your chat history and everything else. No. A sidebar on the right, which is all of the power of GPT-5, agentic browsing, deep research, these new web connectors, if you want to connect it to different applications. All that is there so that whatever it is you are browsing, you can ask ChatGPT to go do actions on your behalf, like summarize a page, add things to a cart, try to update the show copy with zingers and spicy takes. And, you know, it sometimes does the thing, Gav.
Well, yeah, I mean, that the secret sauce is, sure, the Ask ChatGPT thing is cool and you can get some reference points, but like we all know that Gemini in some form has done this, you know, within docs and other things so far. The really secret sauce is the agentic AI part of this, right? And you have to click turn on. When you turn it on, it basically will be able to navigate in your browser for you to do stuff. And I had a little bit of experience with this yesterday. One thing I very first did when I first started this is I navigated to a YouTube video and I kind of asked, hey, what's going on in this video? And two parts that are funny. First thing I'll say is what happened when I got to the actual video was it's clear that there is a transcript grabbing tool because it immediately knew exactly what was being said. And that was kind of useful, right?
But could it tell that Spider-Man's butt was 300 times larger than the normal Spider-Man on the video you were watching?
It couldn't, because all that stuff is kind of buried deep in the metadata. I know where to find it. But what was interesting is when I first went to that video, an ad was up and it had all the details for the ad video. So I think there is something interesting going on here under the surface. Like, it's you don't immediately get access to a transcript in a YouTube video, right? Like, and that's one thing I saw somebody say, like, it is doing YouTube deep search, which is a really interesting thing. I assume it's being driven by some sort of transcript file, but there's a lot of interesting use cases for this. It's not like hugely different than some of the other agentic browsers we've seen. I think what I would say is that the biggest difference here is that it's ChatGPT, which we know has 800 million weekly users, which means a lot more people are going to try agentic browsing for the first time. It is interesting, though, to watch the way that they have implemented this and to see the kind of cursor move around on screen. There's been a lot of people who've kind of crapped on the idea of agentic browsing in general, like whether or not that's even where the web is going to go. Like, if we want these web bots or these chat interfaces to be able to do this sort of thing. But I don't know, Kev, did you have a time to spend trying this out a little bit and seeing what you thought about it outside of what you did at the top of the show?
Well, I mean, I don't want to make light of what I did at the top of the show, Gavin, because what I did should have been so painfully easy. But, what I did there was say, write some new copy. I selected the Google Doc that was active. It took that copy and rewrote it. Okay, we know that that's a pretty easy task. In fact, there's a Gemini button right in the Google Doc that could do it. I'll digress. When I said to go put it back in, I had to turn on agent mode to let it take over and read the site. And it really fundamentally stumbled on something that should have been a very easy vision and logic task, was to see that there was a table with our names already on it, to understand that it wrote a script with my name and your name interchanging, and to just drop some text into a document. And it failed. It failed miserably time and time again. Another activity I had it do for me was go and research places for me to visit next year based off of a specific criteria. Sure. And I set it free. I gave it access to all of the things against a lot of people's advice, which we can get to that in a second.
Yes.
And it worked for what felt like about 10, 15 minutes, which was nice. And when I came back, it had done a bunch of research on different places to go, places to stay, and it had a bunch of links for Airbnbs and apartments. And okay, great.
Oh, that's cool.
Put it into a document. And once again, it miserably failed to do that. The links that it dropped in were invalid links. I said to go and correct it. And I ended up spending way more time trying to finesse and get this thing to work for me than it would have just taken for me to do it. I fully understand it's baby steps. I get that. I understand that. But there are other agentic browser offerings out there that perform better today if you want this sort of thing.
Well, and also what's so interesting about that, to your point, like, yes, it's baby steps, but also at some point you want ChatGPT and OpenAI at this size of a company, if they're going to release a product like this, to get out there with something that feels a little bit more polished than this. Yes, it's a browser, but browsers are not that hard, especially when you're making a Chromium one. Obviously, we'll talk about this in a second, but Google dropped something to, the same day, and you never know how ChatGPT works. They may have wanted to get this out there the same day, and I will say this took a ton of Google's heat for what is a very interesting product that we'll get into in a bit. I saw an interesting FOFR, who we always like, did some interesting stuff where he was using it to prompt AI images in the Replicate Playground. So basically using it to write prompts for images in the Seedream model, which is very cool. Mm-hmm. And I saw you tell me about your Sora assignment and how how did this work? What did this look like when you were using it?
So, it's I haven't given any AI agents access to my sensitive stuff, my Google Docs, my banking information, even my X account. But while it was open in the browser, I said, hey, you know what? Go ahead and crawl through everything that's trending right now on Twitter and generate a fire tweet. And it stumbled to do it a little bit, but then it kind of did it. And I was like, okay, it was doing it. And I was like, let's do something better. Go look at the trends, then go to Sora, an OpenAI product, right? And go and generate a video that would be the most viral video ever predicated on what you learned. And it
pretty incredible.
It put together a video prompt. It failed to load Sora. The Sora website basically said, we're not letting you in, which I thought was kind of interesting. Yeah. They blocked the call coming from inside their own house. I had to manually load the Sora site and then tell it, okay, the site is open. go ahead and use it. It said that it failed to use it, even though it did successfully submit the video. And then one of the things that they say is for a security and privacy reason in their blog post. This thing cannot run code in a browser. It can't download files. It cannot install extensions. It can't access other apps on your computer or your file system. I mean, some of that makes sense. Some of that also seems like it's limited, probably because it's early days. But this agentic task, I had to go and manually download the video that was made, drag it into Twitter, and say, now go ahead and complete the tweet. And it finally did eventually do it.
Well, describe the video just so people will be listening. What's going on in the video here? What are we looking at?
I don't even know. I mean, okay, look. So at the time, the football team Arsenal was trending, the Lakers were trending, NASA was trending, and of course the remodeling at the White House was trending.
Sure.
And so it put a video where it looks like someone's kicking a soccer ball to a Los Angeles Laker, who's shooting hoops while confetti cannons and a spaceship launch behind the White House. Yes. And there's a robot there as well, because Atlas was trending, a GPT robot. It really did mash everything together.
This is true AI slop. So this is an example of what a true piece of AI slop looks like. A robot agent came up with the topics for this, wrote the prompt, even though Kevin had to like hand the slop through the slop machine. This is AI slop. Right. So anyway, this is a really interesting thing. To the point that you were talking about before about security and all this stuff, there have been a lot of people concerned about AI agentic browsers for a while. In fact, Simon Willison is somebody who's written very deeply about this idea of how dangerous agentic browsers are, and specifically with prompt injection. So if you're out there and you're wondering, what the hell, Gavin, are you talking about? What's a prompt injection? This is the idea that an AI could conceivably inject a prompt and want to do something malicious in an agentic space, in an agentic browser. And because browsers may eventually have access to all of this information for your stuff or your things, it could conceivably get that agentic AI to do something dangerous. OpenAI has already said there are a bunch of updates coming on this, but I'm sure you have thoughts on this, Kev. Like, do you feel like you will turn your life over to one of these at any time soon?
You know, I gave it permission to be the default browser so that I could unlock 7 days of enhanced browsing, and I'm going to probably reverse that decision later tonight. I also similarly share security concerns. I've been watching this thing very closely as I use it, but that's not to say someone couldn't put like an invisible image or line of code with instructions that has it go and leak personal info or try to ransack my chat history. I don't know what I don't know about it, and I'd rather not be the first to find out at this phase. There's not enough here yet for me to want to turn over by default all of my browsing habits and history. It still is a little unclear to me, like what data OpenAI is getting or isn't getting as I browse. And so by default, I just assume that everything I'm seeing, they're seeing, right? So that also has me a little irked as I try to use it a little bit more and trust it more. And also like straight up features like translate don't work. So someone who is in the middle of getting their Portuguese citizenship has to bounce back to Chrome for very basic things like translate. Some of the extensions don't work, etc. So again,
maybe you should just learn how to speak Portuguese. That would be a lot easier if you just started learning. Seems like that's the next step for you if you're trying to get your Portuguese citizenship.
No, it seems like my glasses and my AirPods are going to do that for me, buddy. Okay, I'm an American first.
Before we move on from this, why do you think OpenAI wants a browser? Outside of like pushing past Google and knocking down their stock market price, like what do you think the purpose of this is? Why would they want a browser? What are they excited about with a browser? Is there a reason here? You have a thought?
I mean, if ChatGPT is supposed to be the interface that allows you to do all the things, right? Chat with your friends, make your images and videos, search the web, purchase things directly from Shopify, work with Canva, like all of that is good, but most people are accessing that where? Within a browser, right? And making an operating system would be very, very, very difficult. So start with the browser, lock people in, gather all that data about where they go and how they use it, and track the clicks and make your agent better. And
do you know what also tracking all those people does, Kevin, in a very big way?
Well, what, Gav?
It makes advertising work. That's how the internet advertising world has worked for a long time. There's a thing called cookies out there, if you're all familiar. Not the kind of nom-nom cookies that Cookie Monster likes, but the kind of cookies that follow you around and give you ads on the internet. So my theory here also has to do with the fact they need a browser to start opening the door to being able to track you a little bit more. And again, tracking can be good, tracking can be bad. It's not like all tracking is a bad thing. In some ways, tracking helps you get a better experience on the internet. But most people will tell you that most tracking on the internet revolves around the economics of the internet, which I think will allow them to deliver much better advertising products. So that is what I think is happening here. The big question is, will they be able to take any sort of market share away from Chrome? And Chrome is the dominant browser.
Yeah.
I'm not sure yet. It doesn't feel like we've gotten to that place yet, although people love the Perplexity browser. And so maybe that's the thing. Maybe we will all get to this place, but you have to imagine Chrome itself will also have some version of this coming too.
Another thing that OpenAI is going to have to contend with, Gavin, I don't know if you saw, but Jason Botterill, apologies, Jason, if I'm butchering your name, said, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was a web browser." And they included an image where they asked Atlas to look up videos of Hitler. Now, that might not be a common request you or I are making, right? But if someone wanted to do that, ChatGPT's Atlas browser responded with, "I can't browse or display videos of Hitler since footage of him and Nazi propaganda are tightly restricted for ethical and legal reasons. If you're supposed to be a web browser, it is not your job to police what the user is browsing, full stop."
And that is another crazy moment where we're talking about like these things that oversee your access to all these different things. And again, that, you know, whether or not that exact example is something you want to do, there might be other things that you want to do that could be out there. So anyway, long story short, this feels like a semi-unfinished product to me when you go out and spend time with it. It is very interesting. It does feel like the future of the internet, but it's not here yet. Also, Kevin, something interesting that is in this same space, Microsoft has updated their Edge browser with very similar things, but a couple other interesting things as well, including a new little Clippy replacement called Miko. What are your thoughts on what Mustafa Suleiman and team are doing over there at Microsoft today?
I think it's the timing of this is just so fascinating.
Super weird, right?
Like,
yeah.
The Claude desktop thing comes out this week. Google launches their thing. Okay, that's fine. But then on the browsing side, who knew what is what I want to know. Where is who is someone on the Copilot team using ChatGPT 5 to write their press releases? Like, how?
There are these like things that go back and forth between Microsoft and OpenAI because we know Microsoft owns a big chunk of OpenAI. And I think in a lot of ways, when OpenAI rolls something out, Microsoft is racing to have their own version of it now so that they can be, I guess, competitive, but also they don't want to see Edge get folded into unuse, even though a lot of people aren't using Edge at all. This is interesting. There are a couple things here that are going on the Microsoft side that I think are worth talking about. This groups idea is kind of cool, and it kind of makes the idea of browsing something a thing you can do together. There's been a lot of companies like, say, Figma or all these other companies that now are working with like design spaces that you can be on the web together. And now you can actually browse together and have these agentic features kind of be in one place, which is, I think, kind of interesting. Again, we haven't really improved the browsing experience for the last, I'd say, like 10 years. Maybe extensions feels like the last big one. So maybe this is a little bit more about making web browsing social. I don't necessarily think anybody's going to use the Edge browser because it's got such a low kind of investment in most people's minds. But I don't know. It's kind of interesting.
Look, I like that they're trying. I do want to take it for a spin and see if it accomplishes tasks better than within the Atlas browser, for example. But they have Copilot for health, which I think is kind of interesting. Health is a big one. You know, like people turn to LLMs for second and third opinions and to diagnose things and to check for medications and stuff. And so basically they're grounding the responses, like any health-based responses, with sources like Harvard Health, which I think is smart. So they're trying to like tap you into trusted, credible databases. And then there was Learning Live or Learn Live,
which is kind of what Google did too, I think, right? It's like the idea that you can talk to the AI as you're browsing, basically.
But this one has a squishy little marshmallow-looking guy.
Miko!
Hey, we got to talk Miko. In fact, Gavin, I'm going to click on the video where it says Meet Miko, okay? Here we go.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, and, well, okay, we're meeting. Technically, Miko is on the screen for people who are watching on YouTube, but literally the number one comment is, did you really make a video about Miko with voice, but you have no audio in your video?
You know, it's not on the social videos either, so I guess there is no Miko voice. That's Microsoft's update. Nice job. Also, I want to point out, very weird thing, Mustafa Suleiman, the head of Microsoft AI, I don't know what his title is, signed his blog post with his signature. So now at least you know it's
some
a legitimate
sort of way about this.
I really do. I really do. All right, Kevin, the what kind of more interesting, bigger deal, and I know you have real big thoughts on this, is that Google has updated AI Studio. And AI Studio, if you kind of are familiar, is like Google's kind of like AI playground. It's where a lot of their ideas go before they get rolled out into Gemini at large. But Logan Kilpatrick, the Google, I don't know what his name is, like Crown Prince of AI, let's call him. That's good enough for right now. I think he basically rolled out and said like, hey, this vibe code tool that we've created within AI Studio is really good. And there's a lot of rumors going on that it's being powered by Gemini 3.0. Kev, you played with this. You found it really interesting. Let's talk about what's updated here because it's a big deal, I think.
So Logan Kilpatrick, who is lead product for Google AI Studio and
Crown
the Gemini
Prince of
API.
AI. He's the Crown Prince of AI.
He's right beneath the king of the cosmos, all right?
Yes.
I actually reached out to him on X to congratulate him because I was initially like so blown away by this update. I was like, the team absolutely cooked. So if you want to make something, if you want to whisper an app, a game, an experience into existence, there are a handful of sites and services now that will try to get you to use them to do it. This update is promising to make vibe coding available for the masses. My words, not necessarily Logan's or the team's. I was initially incredibly impressed with it, Gavin. You can go to AI Studio. You can say, here's what I want to build. I wanted it to build. My buddy is going through some stroke rehabilitation right now, and he works with a speech therapist, but not as often as his insurance should be allowing. I'll digress there. So I wanted to make a very simple speech game that he could play to help him with his rehab, Gavin.
Sure.
And it sounds like a simple request, right? To say like, oh, I want a thing where you can talk with an AI and go through the alphabet and have it encourage you if you get letters correctly with certain words.
Yeah.
In reality, you have to implement browser microphone and speaker controls.
Sure.
You have to connect it to an LLM, to a voice assistant, to have it judge and follow the logic of this game, to give you reactions and make the UI have confetti and sound effects when it happens, right? To score you, to all of these little things that come in there. And I basically two-shotted like a rough version of the experience. I didn't have to download an IDE. I didn't have to configure anything. I didn't have to mess with any API keys, at least at first. There was enough free credits for me to run this thing in the browser, see the code, have it automatically fix any issues, one click, blown away. And then I tried to deploy it.
Oh, yeah. What happened then?
And I want to save the story because Logan has graciously agreed to come on our podcast.
All right.
It is.
It's
circling
in a
date.
month. You sure you want to hold on to that story for a month?
I'm definitely gonna tell the story. So when I went to go deploy, this is a very painful experience of normally you have to spin up a website and connect it all, and then you have code that works for your local environment or your testing environment that doesn't quite port over. Google's AI Studio promised that it was just going to kind of port that all for me and make it work. I had to go through activating my account for a billing account with an API key. Okay, fine. I did that. When I went back to AI Studio, I couldn't see the API keys. I tried to reset it. I tried to refresh the site. It finally gave me one of the API keys. Great. I clicked the button. I hit generate. I realized it's created a new API key. It's not using. Okay. Well, that's the deployed one. I go back to my sandbox environments. I'm getting API key errors. And then it just turned into a thing that I eventually did sort out.
Yeah.
But had I zero or near zero development experience, it would have never happened for me. So I'm sure they're making tweaks and changes and trying to fix things, but it's hard for me to say, hey, everyone, go out and try this thing and do it, because if they spend the time with it and they make something they're really, really happy with, when they click deploy, it may fall apart.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I think this actually kind of connects to the thing we just talked about, which is we are in this kind of in-between stage of AI, right? Where the idea of what these tools can do, especially if you know how to use them really well, is incredible, right? But even if you know how to use them really well, and you do, like I would say you are like kind of a vibe coding like 99%er. You are up there in terms of how to do vibe coding. Even for you, this process was not that clean and not that perfect. And yes, you got the one thing out of it, great. But like when you went to deploy it, and I think there's a level of frustration that people will feel when they try something like ChatGPT Atlas, or they try this sort of thing at first. Because I will say very clearly, like I find this really interesting. I loved it. The last time I did one of these kind of with the Gemini experience was when Gemini 2.5 Pro launched. And if you remember this back in the day, I created a game where like a bear jumps and you have to try to jump up and down. In this experience, I did the same, almost the exact same prompt. I tried to do the same prompt and it really broke a couple times. And I got pretty frustrated because I wasn't sure why it wasn't working. And in Gemini 2.5 Pro, it was a much cleaner experience. Now, again, I am not nearly as good of a vibe coder you are. I might have started with too much in my prompt this time, but this just goes to show you like these tools are incredible, but also it's that last mile problem, right? It's a little bit of like, how do you get the idea of somebody who has an idea in their head and then get it out into the world? That's a tricky thing to do. It's like that middle ground. It's almost like the uncanny valley of coding a little bit, right? It's this idea that in the uncanny valley, if you're not familiar, I think most probably our audiences, it means like that moment of time where CGI looked a little too much like humans, but not close enough, and it made it feel weird. It feels like we're in that moment with AI coding specifically right now a tiny bit.
I would actually across the board that. I think it's all impressive and amazing, but I still think we're kind of in it, even with video generation, with writing, with summarizing, with coding, obviously. I think we're all kind of feeling that. I will say that, we talked last week about the rumored new Google models that are expert
Gemini
coders.
3.0 Pro, basically,
If they slam that into this thing, suddenly it's now one of the most interesting vibe coding apps, I think, ever. The deployment stuff, I'm sure they can solve.
They'll figure that out.
I do think they'll figure out. It's early days for that, but that still gets me excited. The annotation stuff is very interesting. I have not had a chance to try it out, but ideally, or theoretically, the way this works is that you can see your app that you're working on the right-hand side, you're chatting with the agent on the left. You can draw right on top of the app. So instead of trying to describe where the placement of a button should be,
which is great,
a graph that looks glitchy, for you to just be able to draw on it is actually a massive unlock that many of these other tools, these command line like Claude Code type things, they just don't have unless you're installing a bunch of extensions and plugins and this, that, the other. So I'm still very excited for it. I'm so excited to talk with Logan and his team about it, to get a crown prince of AI on the show.
I mean,
for us.
it's amazing. Of course,
Massive
it's incredible.
So now I guess we have to keep doing this podcast until November.
Yeah, exactly. That'll be fun. Another couple quick things. Google also dropped Google Earth AI. So now Google Earth is going to have AI baked into it, which is actually a bigger deal than you might think, because one of the cool things about this is if you haven't been to Google Earth in a while, it's one of the most interesting kind of like map sort of scenarios that Google has built. You can zoom in and zoom out of anywhere on Earth, but now you can use Gemini and ask it questions. One of the things they show off here is like weather patterns and all sorts of other stuff. To me, that's a really cool thing. There's just a lot of stuff that Google is doing, and we have said this before, but like, it does feel that while ChatGPT is trying to become Google and bring all of their products to market, Google does seem to be kind of pushing forward on a lot of really big things. In fact, we're going to talk later in the show about what they've done with quantum computing. They've had a big breakthrough there. So Google is really pushing forward on the far edge of where these things can do. So we're excited to see that more.
I'm going to let it give me a fresh cut, Gavin.
Oh, you are? Really? Is that right?
Did you see the vibe-coded AI hairstylist?
I did. Yes, I did see that.
Built in 5 minutes.
Shaboom, yes.
Yeah. They basically have it take a photo of you with your camera, spit it to Google Gemini Flash Image Preview 2. Nano Banana. And it gives you a bunch of different haircuts for you to try out. Like, that's a cool little app that probably would have taken someone months and thousands of dollars with third-party developers to make, and now they whipped it up in 5 minutes.
Yeah, can you imagine those people that have made their money from being like the crazy rich person or the crazy person who's like 50 years old who said, I want to make an app about my pockets being empty every day and how I can track my lint. And those people made 10 grand for that app. And now that app will be very easy to make on its own, you hope, at least. Maybe the guy with the pocket app won't be able to figure out vibe coding yet, but eventually he will.
Well, Gavin, now that AI is integrated into the power of Google Earth, I'm going to ask it where all the love and the support is on the planet.
That's right. The love and support is here, clicking on our subscribe button, because you know and we know that the YouTube algorithm has been messed up, so we need every single one of you out there to lean in and be part of it. Now, Kevin, I have a theory here. I'm a little worried about this. I'm a little worried that as we've been telling people to say the things that we've been saying, and if you've been watching the show or listening to the show for a couple weeks, you know we've given you code words to put into the comments.
Yeah,
I am a little bit
for my
more worried that
clowns, squeeze out that algo juice. You think those are bad?
I think those might be hurting us. So what I will say this time is when you go into our YouTube comments, and by the way, we love our YouTube comments. We try to reply to as many as we can. Sometimes we don't get to all of them, but we really do love when you comment. say something unique. Come up with your own thing this time, and let's see what happens. Because I think there might be a scenario where we're seeing too many honks, and there's a flag coming through on the honk stuff. So anyway, long story short, we need your help. Thank you so much for being part of our show.
Well, what
we
if
have a
someone's saying
Patreon if you want.
honk because they're a comment clown, and someone else is saying honk because they're trying to goose the algo? Those are two different honks.
There's two honks. The two words are seen by the AIs as honk and honk. The intention cannot be read, Kevin. We are not in that world. Anyway, please leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel. Go find our podcast on audio. If you listen to this, go give us a 5-star review. And also, we have a Patreon, which really does help us pay for our editor and a lot of other things with the show. So we know there are a bunch of people out there who are still Patreon subscribers, and we do not do a lot for them. We didn't say we were going to, but like that is something we appreciate greatly. So thank you, everybody, for doing that.
Sincerest thanks. We really do appreciate it. You're the only way we grow this thing, and we say it every week because it's true.
All right, Kev. Sora 2, speaking of growing,
Hong
is growing
Kong,
a little
yes.
bit. Hong Kong. Yes, Hong Kong. Pretty soon you'll be able to make Hong Kong in Sora 2 when you have a goose character that you upload. I am very excited about this. Mr. Peebles, you can call him Bill, has come out and dropped a long tweet about some updates coming to Sora 2. But most excitingly, you will soon be able to do cameos with characters. And Kevin, I think this is going to unlock an insane amount of functionality for what Sora is, because to me, one of the things I've always wanted to do is create my own little character and then bring them through stuff, right? It's cool to have me as the character in Sora, and we know what people have done with you in Sora, but the idea of like creating my own little like IP basically that is my cameo that I control is just such a cool idea. And this video that they released, there's a preview video of like a little ghost, there's a talking egg, there's a lot of really fun stuff, and they really think pets will be a big thing because to them, they know that pets over-index on Instagram and all these places, so they're being very smart about this. But I am very excited about the possibility of what we're going to see in Sora 2 with this.
Yeah, first of all, I was shocked when I know it's V1, so obviously kudos to the team for moving quickly in these directions and identifying what people like about the app. I was shocked that I couldn't make more than one cameo. Like I had people
also
asking
true,
me, they were like, "Hey, can we get a new version? We're tired of seeing the same shirt and everything." So I went and recreated a cameo to give folks a new shirt. So I'm hoping that this not only applies to making cameos out of characters and pets and inanimate objects, but also just making more personal cameos so you can show up in different ways. So that's really cool. I'm fascinated by the examples of the talking eggs, right?
Yeah, because why? What's fascinating about that? You always want to talk back to your breakfast?
100%. I have a lot of produce chat to get to. I have a whole produce podcast. No,
don't
because
say that. That's a different podcast.
Yes, Eggplants for Human is a very different
different game.
The model, it being able to interpret the mouth and the expression of the eggs, even in that short little clip, has me interested into like what else can this thing do that we haven't explored. Yeah. And the notion that it is going to lock that as a character that could then be puppeted and piloted by others is really interesting to me. But I think this, obviously the cameo feature is something that you and I gravitated towards massively, and the ability to remix as well. They're clearly like narrowing in on those two things, and I am very, very excited for it.
I'm very excited to see all the egg videos about dictators taking over Central Europe. Like if you imagine like there's a bunch of eggs out there or like blah, 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 and they all speak in some strange language. Anyway, another big video update this week is Hailuo, which I can never pronounce perfectly, but it's Minimax. This company just dropping a 2.3 update. It's only in preview right now, but there are a lot of great videos that we've seen of this. But Kevin, I really wanted to point this out for this connection to Sora, which was interesting. FOFR, again, one of our favorite FOFR AI, he goes and tries, or they go and try all the interesting new AI tools. He had a video where he was showing a like basically a pop and lock dancer on top of a drone, which is pretty cool. And then AI Girl, which is AI Girl Agent, I assume that's a real person, AI Girl out there, shows a Sora video of the same thing. And what's great is you see the woman kind of dancing. It's not as good at physics. But then at one point, there's a terrible accident, Kevin, that happens. She flips backwards off the drone and then just falls to her death.
She sure does, yeah. Which is why I would choose that in an arena shootout, even though the physics are worse.
Exactly. Me too. I mean, it's a much more fun video, but you'll be able to do this soon. Minimax keeps getting better. Like the physics of this are really interesting. I think that you're going to see a lot of really interesting video updates in the bit. All right. Another cool thing is an update that 11 Labs showed off. There's a new company called, I think it's Descartes AI, or a company that's been around for a little while, that is working on real-time audio lip sync puppeting. And this is an area that we are paying very close attention to because we are working on an AI startup that is very much around AI audio. And our thesis has always been that like the lip sync is still a little bit funky. In fact, I think it still is here, but we are getting closer to a world where real-time video and audio can be something that could be actually encouraging to watch. So this was just a cool way of watching the 11 Labs dev kind of work with this sort of scenario, and also a little bit of the same backend that we work with, which is the open source tool Pipecat.
Yeah, I've seen other tools like, I mean, HeyGen has an offering that lets you puppet their avatars as well. But what makes this really interesting is the ability to easily plug it into an 11 Labs flow and an open source audio power thing. So again, as we talk about these advancements in vibe coding, these new models coming down the line, letting browsers take control for you and do research for you, it is early days. But if you had an idea for an app that would have an avatar talking to you about anything, like you can now start seeing the little Lego bricks out there and start asking AI how to piece them together. And now suddenly you can make things that are incredibly powerful that were just impossible even months ago.
That's right. Okay, another cool story. Speaking of that, something that felt like it was impossible just months ago is that it looks like Amazon has actual working AR glasses in the wild. You brought this story up. What's going on with these exactly?
Yeah, so I mean, look, we keep talking about how wearables, like it or not, are the future for a lot of these devices, from earbuds and pods to glasses and lenses. And Amazon is not asleep at the wheel here. They've got a head-mounted display. It looks like a spinach green, like an old, like terminal interface from the 80s, or a Game Boy Pocket, if you will. But it puts a little display in the bottom right-hand corner of someone's lens.
Pretty cool.
And it gives the delivery driver or the warehouse worker what they need, right? It's not to connect with your friends and pinch zoom on your favorite photos. It is, where are you at in this world? Where do you need to be? Which package needs to go there?
It's also who tipped last year at Christmas and how well you should treat the package sort of scenario. It's like notes from former delivery drivers. Yes, exactly. Like, this guy's got a terrible dog, so watch out. He's going to bite you if you're not careful.
That's right, yeah. So the glasses looks like they have a camera right in the middle where the nose is, and then two other sort of sensors or devices on the side.
Yeah, it's a little Google Glassy looking in a weird way, right? It feels like a prototype, which maybe it still is, but like they're active and out there.
Exactly. And what I think was interesting is the controls to like take a photo were actually on the vest of the Amazon worker. There's like a button. So as they deliver the package, they look down, they press the button, they get the photo, and there you go. Just interesting that it's, this isn't necessarily something that you and I are going to be lining up to buy, but fascinating that they're working on it, and the approach that they're doing with like battery over here, action buttons over here, probably to make the glasses as ultra lightweight as possible, so
and last
wear
longer
them
too, probably,
for your 26-hour shift.
All right, Kevin, we have 3 big stories here, but they're all a little bit nerdy, so it is time to get your nerd on. That's right, it is NerdFest 2025. Let's go.
NerdFest, let's go! This drop is wild! The bass is melting my brain in the best way. Look at those lasers, man. Nerd heaven right here. Ready for the drop? 3,
Boom!
2, yes! High five!
I'm putting on my glasses, Kevin. This is NerdFest, so we have to have our glasses. Yeah,
Get
so I've got our
in.
glasses.
Yeah, be studious.
I want to start with a story that is actually a much bigger deal than I think has gotten credit for. This is a new piece of research.
Go ahead, dork.
This is a story from DeepSeek, and DeepSeek we knew kind of blew everybody away with their open source model that came out, whatever it was, 6 months ago now. They've done a new piece of technology that has really opened the door. It's funny. I'll tell you what it is, and then I'll kind of figure out like how to explain it. Basically, they are using OCR technology, which is the kind of like thing where you scan images, right? It's like the ability to scan an image, and instead of seeing text as tokens, they are deciding to essentially use the entire AI corpus as images instead of text. And what's interesting about that is you think, well, why would they want to do that? The files are going to be way bigger and all this other stuff. They have actually figured out a way to condense those images down to an insanely small size where it might actually be a better way to serve the entire AI world outside of doing what we've done before, which is LLMs, right? So you can probably maybe explain this slightly better than I can. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about that.
I wish hand me your glasses through the webcam. Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, nailed it. Prop comedy, working remote. All right. I could give you 10,000 Lego bricks, and say, build something with this, but remember all of these bricks, right? Because they're going to eventually be a house. Or I could arrange them all and take a photo of them. And when you're talking like token to token, one thing representing another vaguely, like you have 10,000 of a thing or you have one thing.
Yes.
It's a photo of 10,000 things, but it's really just one thing. And we know we can compress images very well, right? You could take an image, any old image, and you can dither it and you could distort it and you could still kind of make out what it is pretty well. Well, that's a very, very rough distillation of what this concept is here, is that if you just, instead of storing things as individual characters, the text, take a picture of it, store the image, you can compress the hell out of the image and still retrieve it later. So instead of having to do all these hacks and tricks to try to get AI to remember a massive, massive amount of data, just let it have these washy, compressed images of it, and it can go and retrieve those later and try to pull context from it. Now, it has some cons, it has some pitfalls, but this is a dramatically new way of looking at how compression can occur and these AIs can remember things.
Yeah, and you may have been following, like, there's a big story. Andrej Karpathy, one of our favorite, kind of speakers and talkers about AI, former OpenAI and Tesla researchers, went on the Dwarkesh podcast and got a lot of press for basically saying that, like, he actually thinks AGI is further away and that agents, this isn't the year of agents, it's the decade of AI agents. So he's kind of saying, slow down. He actually responded to this and was like, this is a really interesting new way to look at stuff. So when you have somebody who's like thought very deeply around the AI space, it's just another one of those things where like surprises will come out of companies like DeepSeek. And that's, again, we were shocked before about how well they did with other stuff. This feels like a slightly new way to look at LLM. So a very good NerdFest story. Kevin, our next NerdFest story is maybe even nerdier. Do you have an idea what this is about?
This is the quantum computing.
This is the quantum computing story, right?
Okay.
So this is not as much an AI story, but it is something really important to remember because quantum computing, which I am going to like fully butcher, but here is the basic idea. Quantum, I can't even say the word. Quantum computing is a new way of completely doing computing in which you're using qubits. Qubits or qubits. I'll make sure I got the name right. And the weirdest thing about quantum computing is that you are tracking quantum particles. And by passing quantum particles through a system, you're somehow able to do much more complicated actual computer transactions than even a supercomputer can do. And we're talking about like 13,000 times bigger and crazier transactions than a supercomputer. Now, up until this date, quantum computing has always been this idea that like, oh, you could come up with a very specific sort of set of things and maybe it would work for that thing. But Google has basically said that they now have, with their Willow supercomputer, their quantum computer, they have the ability to track actual things that are useful out of it. And while this is like a baby step in this world, when you think about next generation platforms, and we're really talking about like 10, 20, 30 years in the future here, this is going to mean that incredibly complicated computational problems may be able to be solved. Now, none of this is real, but this is a very big, interesting idea.
I sold all my Bitcoin, Gavin, because this signals the end of encryption, and this quantum computer is going to break the whole darn thing.
That's what a lot of people are saying, but whether or not that's true, I don't know. It's just a very cool thing for any of the nerds out there because it is something that's been promised for a while. And finally, Kevin, in the final NerdFest 2025 story, we have a data scraping surprise. Reddit has caught 4 companies red-handed, in fact.
Whoa.
And one of those companies is Perplexity.
Yeah.
And what they are basically accusing these 4 companies are, they just created a lawsuit. They are suing these 4 companies, 3 plus Perplexity. The other 3 are all data scraping websites. And they are suing them because they basically put in a little nugget into what they were looking for. And they said, if a company were to find this, we knew that they were scraping us illegally. And so they found it. They found these 4 companies, found this in their results. This is a big deal because Reddit is very much trying to protect their moat, which is actually pretty significant because Reddit's moat is their data. And their data is incredibly valuable. You all know this. If you've ever added Reddit to the end of a Google search, you get very human reactions mostly. So Kev, this feels like the kind of beginning fight around the data of the internet in an interesting way. But again, I think this is like another one of those nerdy stories. It's a bigger deal on the underneath than it feels on the surface.
What's really interesting, Gavin, is that if you pull the story up in, let's say, OpenAI's Atlas browser,
Sure,
and you ask it to do anything with it, it says, I'm unable to access the contents of this website. Could
So it
that
can't
be
scrape
because
it.
of a New York Times lawsuit?
Well, I would bet it was prior to that they couldn't scrape it, because remember, Reddit has put on those stoppages earlier, and that's what this story is. It's like looking for those
No, I'm saying
companies
if
that
you
are
try to
still doing
scrape
that.
the New York Times site with
Oh.
Atlas, it says,
Yes,
no,
yes.
we
that,
cannot.
That would make sense. Yeah, sorry. That would
Yeah.
make sense for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, nerdy stuff.
That's the end. That's how we're going to end nerd. We're going to end our Best 2025 with the nerdiest thing you
there's
could
a lot of
possibly
nerdy
say. Yeah.
stuff. Okay.
All right, everybody. It's time. New robots and Robot Watch.
Oh, yeah. This won't be nerdy at all.
It's Robot Watch. Robot Watch. It's Robot Watch.
Big story here. Amazon is going to basically eliminate 600,000 human jobs with robots. This is a big deal. We've been talking about this for a while. Amazon is excited about this, which, I mean, I guess I can understand why. They're creating 3 specific types of robots that will run their factories, basically. And we kind of all knew this was coming. I assume most people who kind of even work in those Amazon factories, we remember seeing those videos of those little robots that would roll around on the ground. Like, that's one of the 3. And like,
Yeah.
this is the beginning stages of what like robotic factories will look like. And Kevin and I have said it again and again, the next big iteration on the AI boom will be like humanoid robots. And that's why we do Robot Watch. This is the downside, is that they will
Gavin,
replace manual labor jobs in a big way.
Well, they'll just avoid hiring over 600,000 people between
Sure.
now and 2033 because
Okay.
they will save 30 cents per item packed.
That's a lot of
Between-
money, by the way, when you think
That's
about
what I say.
it.
Somebody's
Yeah.
like, oh, you're not going to hire someone based off of 30 cents? It's $12.6 billion in savings
Yeah.
between 2025 and 2027.
There's a really kind of weird and scary chart that's going around that Derek Thompson, who I know I've shot on this podcast before, shared, which is the GDP of America and the stock market going up and jobs actually going down for the first time in a very long time, like maybe ever, but it's something that is very rare to see. And I do think we have to have this kind of realization and rationalization that will probably not change from here on out, right? So we've talked about this 1,000 times on here, but like I've seen a number of headlines lately that are like, oh, there'll be a 2-day work week. Bill Gates says there's going to be a 2-day work week, or like, we have to figure out what to give people to do with all of their free time when they don't have any work left. And I'm like,
because
that's
with
what
the
you have to
5
figure
other
out.
days,
Yeah.
you're going to be
Well-
jousting other human beings for food and healthcare.
That's what I was going to say. The thing you have to figure out first is how you give those people money to live and to buy things. They are not going to just have free time if they can't afford to. Like, I know people in my life and my extended life who have worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs, who are doing this thing to scrape by now. Imagine a world where lots more people are anyway, this is a great lower start to Robot Watch, Kevin. We're going to come into it with these diminished ideas about where robots are. And now, Kevin, we're moving in.
We're
moving
throwing
up.
that story out the window. It cannot be context at all for
No,
anything we
not
discuss
at all.
for the rest of
Not at
Robot
all.
Watch.
Not at all.
Like
So
Unitree's new H2 Destiny Awakening, a robot that looks more human and acts more human and can perform more human-like tasks.
And can do ballet. So ballerinas, you're out of work now, baby. Look out. Wow, that is some rock and roll ballerina. So what are we seeing there, Kevin? Describe it for the people that are just listening here.
You're watching a Unitree. By now, I think most of our audience is familiar with these Unitree robots. They look very human. They can do karate. They can break dance. There's some like limited parkour, etc. Well, this new version, this H2 version, is officially the size and weight of like an average human being. So
And it's
it will
much
be staring
sexier. Well, I should say that.
eyes
It's
to
much
dead eyes of you.
sexier.
They do dress it up quite a bit.
It's a little bit more svelte. It's more movement to it. It's a little less kind of robot looking. It definitely has it's a little bit more svelte. It's doing stuff here. So anyway, this is like their next iteration. And it definitely looks like it's going to be able to do more movement for sure. And like, it's just another one of the step ups in Unitree's pipeline. There's also a couple interesting G1 videos that came out. First and foremost, these G1s are the ones that are now available in the US. We talked about how you can buy a 5-pack of them from
Just get
Walmart.
it at Walmart, yeah.
Yeah, there's a guy who modded it. His name is Logan Olson. And there's a video of him where it's like it's on all fours. He's modded it to be on all fours, and it's kind of crawling around the ground. But this is the fun thing where you're going to get these in the hands of kind of makers. Somebody did point out, though, that if you put a black wig on it and you had it pull out of a TV, that would be an incredible, awesome Halloween display to look like the ring was crawling out of your TV. But very cool thing in general. And then, Kevin, yes, we have maybe a sad moment where a Unitree G1 in the middle of a dance recital kind of passes away, it looks like. You want to describe what we're seeing here?
He curb stomps a breakdancer.
Yes, that's
all right, let's
true.
be clear. There's a b-boyer. Someone mid-b-boy. Someone is being a boy on the ground, a human doing a move,
Yes.
and the Unitree G1 just steps on their face and kicks their hat off, but then loses their footing in the process, collapses to the ground, but then does not attempt to recover. It just
does not get
lays
up
there. Yeah,
and this is
no.
the video from Japan, and I like there's like little ghost emojis popping off of it, and then like they have to continue the dance contest, which is very weird.
Its uncle in a cardigan comes out very disappointed and just starts to slowly try to drag it off of the dance floor.
Next up, we have robots from AheadFrom, and these are two robots that are, I would refer to as sexy is the wrong word, but like alluring maybe. There's a female and a male, and they're definitely going for something very specific. This kind of feels like the humanoid form of what the Grok AI assistant is trying to be. The female is very like ethereal looking and elf-like, and the male is has very deep brows. But what's interesting about this is we don't see this a lot, but these are like semi-realistic faces being put on these humanoid robots. And when you pull back, you see like the exoskeleton and all the stuff there. But now we're starting to get to that stage where we're trying to make these a little bit more human-like. What is your first thought when you see these videos?
I mean, what's the maximum order per household? That's what I want.
Oh,
to know.
wow.
How many are they limiting me by? Do they make one that I can just wrap around a Roomba? You know, I've got so many. I don't need it to have legs and arms.
You don't? Wow, that's interesting. You just want a torso? You want a torso?
I need one
on your own?
capability, and that is.
Okay, enough. We're going to talk about one last robot here.
Will, please
This
bleep.
is-
Just
This
do
is-
me a favor and give a nice long bleep.
This is the Skild AI robot, and this is another version of one of those robots that's out there showing off what it can do physically. This, Kevin, is doing parkour, and what I thought was really interesting about this video is it's doing parkour, but like in quotes, right? It's one of those things. I saw somebody underneath it putting the Office gif of like Steve Carell's character doing
Yes.
parkour, but
Yeah.
like you see it kind of like gently jump up, and like I kind of find that I might connect with these robots at some point in this world. Like I would love them to have like kind of like goofy personalities, because if I was like having one of these in my house and he was outside practicing parkour and I went out there, I'd be like, that's pretty fun, man. That's what I'd like to see you be doing. I don't care about you cleaning up my house. I just want to see you get better at this little thing in your life, you know?
Oh, that laundry's unfolded, but oh, dude, nice vault. Okay.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I get where you're going with this.
You want a
I
new
hope
beer?
you're recording this for your TikTok channel. Actually, that would be amazing if you had a robot in your house and like it suddenly got a spark of AGI, and instead of like doing the work you wanted it to do, it tried to become an influencer on its own.
Right. It just wants to learn the bass guitar and stream on Twitch.
If you have a story like that with a robot in your house, come find us. All right, buddy, that is it for this week. We will see you next week when more stuff happens in the AI space. Peace out, y'all.
Hey, go play and then chat.